Good morning. How are you? I'd like to welcome you all. I said there are not many people here. It's complicated. This is Sunday. There's an election going on in Andalusia. People have left. I think we have an interesting talk ahead of us. 35-40 minutes. This is the last part of Cybercamp. We're here to talk about our experience as the Spanish team in the last edition of the European Cybersecurity Challenge. We've made an analogy with a video game. Are you familiar with Battlefield? This year was a particular fight. There were many difficulties. The challenge has increased the number of countries to people in the steering committee, and I would like to say hello to my colleague Raúl Riesco. There were many last-minute decisions, changes in the rules of the game, conflicts of interest among countries. So it was sort of a battle for all of us. And before starting, I would like to ask a question to our audience. How many of you have heard about European Cybersecurity Challenge before? Hands up. About 75% of our room. Those of you who have just come in, did you hear me? Have you heard about the European Cybersecurity Challenge? Well, today's talk is inspirational, motivational talk. We're going to use Gonzalo and Manuel as an example to follow. Well, particularly for those of you, the young ones following us, those of you who want to be part of the Spanish team, and we're going to explain how you have to do it. You're the right place, Cybercamp, which is the classification stage in order to become a member of the Spanish team. So without further ado, we'll start with a talk. Well, I would like to introduce Manuel Blanco, aka Rainy Day. How did you start in cybersecurity? I was quite young when I started, like all of us. I was self-taught. I was curious, and little by little you develop your skills. You read whatever you can, you take part in fora, you discuss with people in chat, you exchange opinions. That was how I began. And we also have Gonzalo García León, aka Hans Topo, Hans Mole. He was third. He came up third last year in Cybercamp. This year he's been fighting until the last minute. How did you start? In ETF, I started last year at Cybercamp, my first serious CTF. And in cybersecurity, it was like Manuel. I finished my studies, and before finishing my studies, I was focusing in cybersecurity, ethical hacking, and after that, I was self-taught. I registered for a master's degree in IT security, but I wasn't convinced by it. Usually when you finish your studies, they tell you that you need a master's degree, that it's mandatory in order to become someone, to specialize. I don't think so. I don't agree. I think your personal work, and this is based on my experience and the experience of people around me, the work you do at home, the interests you have, whatever you practice, that's more valuable than any degree. Well, you've raised an important point. I would like to ask you about the need to have a technical degree in order to work in this area. There are many self-taught people. A while ago, there were no specific training, and people working in this were self-taught. But it's true that having a technical degree gives you cross-cutting knowledge and a basis after which you can specialize. You're studying computing science engineer? No, I've finished. We were speaking about this yesterday. I said that for me, having my degree provided me with a technical basis which is very important. That's what I tell people all the time when they ask me, or when they tell me they want to be hackers or work in cybersecurity, I always say the same thing. It's a cross-cutting knowledge. It has to do with every knowledge in IT. What does it mean? If you're interested in web security, web hacking, and red team in web apps or code analysis in web apps, first of all, you need to be familiar with that technology. You cannot exploit a vulnerability in PHP if you don't know anything about PHP. Or you cannot do pen testing in systems if you don't master Linux or Linux console. From my point of view, I think it's not that important. Perhaps it's a good way to have a good theoretical foundations, good pillars, good concepts. It's one way to acquire this knowledge. Self-taught. If you're self-taught, you cannot reach those information sources. So you have university, it gives you a basis. But you can reach that knowledge in a self-taught basis. The most important thing is that the person has passion and that the person learns all the time. So if you've sort of answered the next question, we tend to go to INCIBE conferences and they ask me, how can I specialize in cybersecurity? Today, the internet provides you with the necessary tools, tutorials, there are forums, many events in which you can get into the community. What would you recommend to the youngest people that are looking at us, watching us today? I would recommend conferences. When you're starting, Cybercamp, Rootedcamp, you have all the talks in the internet. Even though you don't have the possibility to physically go there, attend to the conference, there's material in the internet, and that's very honest. This is something really good organizations are doing, uploading all this content for free. And when we say that we're self-taught, we mean that we use Google very well. Everything is there. You just search in Google, and when you specialize, well, you filter the information you want to obtain from which field. It's true, and that came up yesterday too. Let's imagine you know nothing about cybersecurity. I tell you, you need to self-teach yourself. Search in Google. What do I search for? Hacking web? You're going to see many advertising material from many courses that they want your money. And then you have lots of materials that are not quality materials. So that's why I think conferences are important, not just the conference itself, but also the people you meet, the people around you. For me, that was one of the most valuable sources of information. So the community you create. Yes. So let's close this first part of the conference, which is inspirational, motivational. We already know your trajectories for our two captains. Now let's speak about the Spanish team. For those of you who are not familiar with this, Cybercamp allows INCIBE to choose 10 people that go to the European Cybersecurity Challenge every year through Cyber Olympics, individual CTF and hackathon. INCIBE's role is choosing the Spanish team that goes to the ECSC every year, and they're trained in our facilities. This is two of our main tasks. I would like to ask you something so that you can explain this to young people watching us that want to become members of our team. How can you be a member of our team? What did you do? Interesting question. The best way to reach your goal is constant work. For example, if you want to be good at CTF, of course you need to do that all the time. You need feedback. There are platforms such as CTF Time, where there's a list of the competitions that take place, where you can register, and perhaps you need to play with the team, but you can go through challenges, move forward, and if you don't solve a test, which is normal, the first thing to get to know something is not knowing that. After fighting with it, you can look at the solution and you understand the MO in order to reach your goals. And then you just have to play, to be constant, and come to cybercamp. Yes, man, that's very important. I've said that INCIBE is in charge of training the Spanish team. In that training that you provide at our facilities is a technical part, but also soft skills. In other words, the skills that make you do more efficient at your work, business view, communication, the ability to work as a team, managing stress, conflicts. How do you see the training we provided in INCIBE? Ours was quite fun. With Miguel, we did things which were, he's laughing, a bit crazy, so to speak. But some activities were quite exotic. But we had laughs. We get to know each other. One of the best ways to get to know each other was being forced to do silly things, laugh at ourselves. And of course, working as a team and cohesion, that's something pivotal, because we choose a group of people that are specialists in specific categories. Each one is good at something, and we create a high-performance team, and the summatory of capabilities creates a team that can have a good performance and a competition. But you have to manage stress, because these years were 2 days, 16 hours of uninterrupted competition, and managing stress is very important. I would like to add something. It's very tiring, being under pressure. You want to achieve a good result. It's complicated to handle all that. So it's important to have social skills, because as you say, this is a team. You need a technical profile, but you need to be able to communicate, because it's a team. You need self-criticism. If you can't solve something, you need to say it. You cannot use a colleague's ideas. That's it. I think, these are some pictures of this year's training. We trained 15 people from Cybercamp's competition. In the end, we had 10 members and 5 people for reserve. The first one was Jonathan, who came up second in CTF's competition yesterday in Cybercamp. You already know Manuel and Gonzalo. I'd like you to get to know the rest of the members of the team. You're not going to come up to the stage yet, but we're going to watch a video of this year's training.
Bueno, pues ese fue el vídeo de la formación.
So this is a video of the training that we received at INCIBE, and now let us go into competition, and then we will make a technical demo of one of the challenges that we did in London. So those of you who want to get closer to European Cybersecurity Challenge, it started 3 years ago as an initiative of ENISA, with the of attracting. It is kind of that the Euro League of European talents in this competition. Well, the design of CFT changes. This year, the first part was attack and defense. So you party CTF with different categories: forensic, web analysis, and also some TFFs. Change every so often. NISA tries to give a different view, a different perspective every year, so that the competition continues to be healing as well. And actually, this year of the novel was an area dedicated to training, where we could buy hints and engage in cooperation with different countries. At the end, they decided not to go for it. We have worked a lot on the aspects of negotiation. Well, we must say that we have kind of hurdle with English language. Okay, so we will improve our English. Although this year we did a good job in when we introduced ourselves. And well, now I'd like to ask you, what is the meaning of this competition to you? What do you mean by meaning? So what does entail for you participating there, representing Spain? How do you feel about it? I'll give you an example. Before participating for the first time, I didn't know anyone. I didn't know Borja nor Jose, no one. And I saw an article in the news and saying that the Spanish team won the competition, won the challenge. And to me, I said, well, I want to be there. That's my aspiration. I would never be one of them. I would never win the challenge. Look, 1 year later, I was there in the team. And yes, well, you can see that he's very humble. Actually, he's very, very good. He's the best. So participating in the European Challenge, well, this year we had the participation of many countries. The level was very high. So you don't feel that you are participating in a junior CTF. It is a serious CTF. It's higher level. Yes, actually, I mentioned that to some colleagues. In recent years, the initial purpose, which was identifying and promoting talent, has kind of been lost. This is like being professionalized, and let us say you see some teams wearing the icons and the logos of companies, and well, because we won 2 times, we were kind of being, I don't know, singled out, so to speak. And this year, well, we had the participation of 17 teams, so 17 countries. It is expected next year to have the participation of 20 countries. So the challenge is growing and growing. The first year there were only 5 countries. And what are the challenges you face today? So this year, well, all the challenges, as I said, were different, multidisciplinary. The competition had a Jeopardy format, meaning that there were different categories: hacking web hacking, and there were different challenges in each categories and organized or classified by level of difficulty. The challenges were very interesting. And well, this is a photograph of our team there in London at the facilities. And now I'd like to play a video for the first day of the competition. This is a setup that we found in London.
Bueno, pues ya habéis visto un poco el lugar de competición de este año. Yo creo que fue
That was the competition site. Very nice atmosphere. Second day was very, very good because we could see so very many countries, big teams. We had a cameraman with us. We have Manuel, our assistant. Very many people involved right from the start to push the team to get ahead of the others. NISA tries to innovate every year just to add novelties to the competition. And this year they had bandstand challenge. That was kind of like escape room challenge with some hardware to it. So I'd like you to tell us a bit more about that challenge, but before that I'll play a video.
Bueno, contarme un poco en qué consistía.
Well, tell us a bit more about this challenge. Where do we fail? Well, that challenge was very interesting. It was not kind of usual. It was escape, where we had to gain access first, trying out a number of combinations to get the pin number. Then we had to flag some alarms and well, would you please share any anecdotes? That test or that challenge was held in the second day of the competition. The day 1, 8 hours of competition, we finished third, and we were very close to finish the first, and we had 15,000 points, but because of this test, things started to go wrong from the start. What happened? Well, I'm one of the responsible for things going wrong. So, well, when we started the challenge, the test, okay, we went we rushed into it. There were a number of challenges that we had to go through. First of all, a door that you had to open through a PIN code. So the night before we had been given a cryptogram, and then we had to find the script to open the door. we failed that. We failed that test. I think that all the teams failed that very first test. The second test was going into the room, and then there was an alarm. Yes, actually, we could hear the alarm in the video. So there was an alarm, and all of us ignored it. We didn't pay attention to it. In my case, I thought it was kind of like the countdown. But no, it was an actual alarm, and there was a code covering a button that we had to press to keep going. And then, well, now wait for the best part, is coming. So one of the parts was kind of a bomb that had to be deactivated. So the first thing that we had to do is just to bridge some circuits. And Pablo is our expert in hardware. He was bridging that. And then one of the bridges fell into the actual box, into the actual bomb. And I mentioned to the organizer, look, we just lost this in the box. Can we get another one? And he said, no. Well, part of the test or challenge was for you to be careful not to drop anything or not to lose any of the components. And that was another failure, and the very last failure, which I'm fully responsible for that. I don't know whether pliers, well, they have like some gap in them, okay? Everyone knew that but myself. So we had to cut 4 wires simultaneously. Are we all ready? Yes, ready. 3, 2, 1. And then when I did it, I could see that one of the cables had gone into that gap. Okay, I could see that I hadn't cut the 4th wire, and then I tried to cut it right at the end, and then it emitted a very low noise, a cryptic noise, like kind of meaning that it has exploded. And it was Pablo who said, okay, let us run away, okay, this has not been diffused, okay. And that was a turning point, because we went into the room, back into the room, we were disappointed, the rest of the teams started to gain lots of points, and we got like kind of discouraged. And actually that was a key challenge, a key test. And then, well, the score was very tight. Those 15,000 scores would have allowed us to have finished 4th or 5th. And then we would analyze why we could not repeat in our win this year. And then, as we said before, this competition has like part of it is about introducing ourselves, okay? In the past, we were penalized in that test, but this year we got top scores thanks to Manu and his presentation. Can you tell us more about it? Well, actually, we knew that test was very important, was very relevant in terms of scoring, and because we had difficulties in previous year, we decided to devote time to it, to train very much on it, and then we did a very good job. I have a good command of English, I'm fluent in English, and then that's why we did a good job. And now it's time to answer the following questions. Since I came back from London, that was in October, I think I had to answer this question like some 100 times, if not 150 times. The question is about why. The Spanish team has won the security challenge in Malaga. We have also won the previous year. We were about to have our 3rd win. And as you can see this year in this table, so we finished 11th position. On day 1, we were very high up in the score table, but there were factors that penalized us. And second day, one of the junior guys, one of the most talented guys, got sick, had to go back to the hotel, so we played only with 9 people. The first day we also had problems with connectivity. 2 people couldn't work for hours or for a good period of time. It is true to say that the level of participating countries this year was very high, higher than in previous year. To give you an example, the Italian team had 6 guys in them who had been in DEF CON in Las Vegas, professional players. Polonia had never been up in the ranking, they finished 4th. And then the trainer was the captain of Dragon Sector, Greece. There were sponsored by Heartbox. So a number of regularities, well, they kind of got some suspicious scoring. And actually the steering committee had very hot debates and meetings, and it was not right until the end when they disclosed the final classification of final results. Well, I have analyzed this several times before. What about you? How do you feel? What do you think were the aspects that impacted us the most for not to be higher up in the final results table? Well, as we said before, this competition lasted for a couple of days. Well, it used to be 24 hours in the beginning, then it increased from 1 day to 2 days. Pressure was building up. In the second days, we were very anxious. We were kind of worn out, because virtually speaking, we were first on day 1, and then we had to keep that up, and we just couldn't do it. As I say, our rivals, okay, the other teams were of really high level, and well, that's why. When actually, they were kind of going for us, I don't know, since day number 1, it is not that we felt attacked, but well, we received many claims, or the managing team received many claims about us, so they were resolute to beat us. So, Gonzalo, would you like to add anything there? Well, I share what Noel said. Well, we finished 11th because there were a number of things that we didn't do right. Well, that day we were not as encouraged, and the rest of the teams also did a very good job. Well, to be a bit self-critical, perhaps the team did not flow as much as in previous years. Perhaps we didn't have enough training. Perhaps in previous years we had more training. So there was a bit of lack of consistency between the senior and junior team. So at the end of the day, 16 hours of competition. On day 2, we were all kind of a bit crazy. And as we said before, soft skills are very important. Stress management, teamwork becomes all the more important, all the more relevant, and a crucial element for this type of challenges. And also the finishing 11th, it is not something that we should be not proud of, not at all. It is not a defeat. So for us, this is a win, this is a triumph. Well, someone may go and say, well, you finished 11. No. Those who said that, they have not been there. They haven't gone through it. Higher level. In all the teams this year, no one has been defeated. So those who actually fails are those who stay at home, who do not take part in the challenges or in any qualification rounds. And here we have the winner of individual CTF CyberCon. So we have another person who won the CTF DEFCON. Manu also Go Away CTF was won last year. So technically speaking, our team was very solvent, robust, and competent this year. Okay, we would like to be clear and to share all that with you so that you are well aware of this. Spain has always been a clear reference inside and outside the competition. So Manu, this is a question for you. We are also a reference outside the competition. Oh yes, we are. We should not forget that this competition, rather than being an actual competition and beating our rivals, it's also about networking and making friends. And we are very good at interacting with other teams. We are highly sociable. We made good friends, and we really had a good time. Would you please tell us more about the photograph right in the middle? What were you doing there? So we had friends from Switzerland, and we were just dancing together. So we've gone through, the experience that both captains have had, and now let us move on to the technical side of the challenge. Manuel Gonzalo will share with us one of the challenges that we had to solve. Okay, all yours. Well, the challenge was ECO2. It was for exploiting binaries, in this case in Linux. Okay, I'll go into technicalities now. It was an ELF binary, Linux, 32 bits. It had a bit NX, asking for the stack to be writable, and it was linked dynamically, meaning that the system libraries were not preloaded in the actual binary, but the libraries are set for in the OS. So this facilitates the reversing of the binary. That is to say, to see instruction by instruction what the binary does. That's facilitated quite a lot. Another thing which is facilitated is that the binary was not stripped. That is to say that the function and the names of the variables were visible, perfectly legible. So this facilitates reverse engineering of the binary for you to know what each function does. The bug of this binary is known as format string. But you can see that better. It was an sprintf function where the input of the user went right away as became the second parameter of the function, which is the parameter that defines the writing of the variable. This allows us to embed in the function modifiers of our choice. So for instance, TP allows us to access the pointers in the stack. That will be the bug. And now I'll change over to Manu, who will tell us how to exploit that vulnerability to execute remote code in the server where the binary is written. As we said before, the bug was a formatted string within the vprintf family, which was the function that we were given. My MO to exploit the bug was to take advantage of two primitives. So we have a writing primitive and a reading primitive. In the server production, the SALR was not live, was not enabled. So when there were some leaks, we could exploit them for the rest of the addresses. And actually, the exploit that we developed will work even if the SALR would be enabled. So therefore, to overcome or bypass ASLR, we use the reading primitive, and then we calculated the necessary displacements to write the return address of the handler, which is a vulnerable function, and then we overwrote the descriptor of the socket. So therefore, we had a loop that was reading passive data on an ongoing basis. The descriptor was overwritten with a different number, a number that was not open, so we could break that and we could end up in the return address. And then we also use JLib libc so we entered the libc address, and then we took advantage of any symbol that we found. And then with the writing primitive, as I said before, we launched an attack of return. We wrote down the return address in the stack system. You overwrite that with the system address, and then we introduced the argument, which was in this case the reverse function. Because before getting to the return address, we did a return of the socket. So it was closed, therefore the address was no longer active. We could not remap the descriptors, nothing. So the only thing we could do there was inverse or reverse shell. So as we saw before, because it was in a loop, it was reading it all the time on an ongoing basis, we just override the socket descriptor. And now this is exploit. You can see we are automating the exploiting system, and well, it has been programmed in Python, and you can see here some witnesses of the format of direct access. And we have the different leaks from IC and from stack. And then we move on to overriding. Once we have the addresses leaked, then we calculate the sockets, and then we do two overridings. So we first overrode the stack frame, and then we adjusted the stack, and then we asked the command to be run. And we did also need cache. to use the addresses of our address. And then, well, now let us move on to demo. Well, hopefully it will fail. Well, no, I'm just joking. Well, we did not solve the challenge at the competition. There was a technical problem. This was a challenge. Scoring 9,000 points. We just did not solve it because we had a flaw. And actually, we solved it when we were coming back home on the plane. So this is the exploit. This is the address of the machine to be attacked, the virtual machine. You can see the address now. Okay, we will be sending in a netcat. Can you see it? Well. Okay, now we move on to exploit. As an argument, we use the address that we used to listen to netcat. Okay, we also transfer the port where we started, and then we should be receiving the reverse shell. So we already have a fully functional shell, and this was the exploit. More or less, we got a random code execution. Then we had to read the flag file, and we were given this virtual machine for us to make testings, to do our testings. So when you're making an exploit, the first thing that you do is you test it locally. When it works locally, you just launch it against the server under production. You are not going to launch exploits if they are not fully functional, because if you do that, you may be leaving logs behind you that may be later analyzed. First, you develop the exploit locally, and then you launch it to the server in production. We went to debug mode. We see how the PLIC was loaded. We just didn't want the address to be leaked to find the offset. So we found the format logs. We calculated the address, the displacements, and then we came up with the MAC address. Then we did some debugging. So these are the 21 bytes. We sent in the payload. And this is what we did to solve the challenge, or this is the way you solve the challenge. And that's all from us.
Bueno, la verdad que el pasado, hermano. El pasador. Teníamos previsto.
Well, actually, we thought we would be here for half an hour. We've been for almost an hour. Unfortunately, we just don't have any more time. Let us finish with the official video, a video showing the experience of Spanish team in London. So probably some of you haven't seen it. Have you watched the video? No, Manuel, I have not watched the video. Okay, we play the video to finish off with our session.
Bueno, y ahora a mí me gustaría que subiesen el resto de...
And now I would like to have the other members of our team up here to take a family picture. I would like to request the presence of a person who's very important, who's in charge of all this event. That's Tatiana. She had made this event reality.
A ver, aquí debajo. Bueno, resuelven técnicos... Y bueno, quedan justo 46 segundos, me marca...
We just have 46 seconds left. I would have liked to interview one of the guys, but we don't have enough time. Perhaps a question from our audience. Does anyone want to ask a question? Yes.
Me gustaría saber cuál es el...
I would like to know about the renovation. How many people knock on your door and how many people get in every year? Well, we're very serious about that. The competition has rules. 10 people per team. 5 have to be juniors between 16 and 21 years old, and the others from 21 to 25. At INCIBE, our reposition rate is 40%. 4 people have to be new every day. 5 juniors and 5 seniors. That has to be kept. If you're competing these days in Cyber Camp, we do have the numbers, 150, about 150 people.
¿Más preguntas? Bueno, pues damos por...
No more questions? Does anyone want to say something? They're very shy. The captains do the talking. Thank you very much.